The desert sands of the alien planet were vast, stretching endlessly beneath a sky filled with unfamiliar stars. A small settlement sat at the edge of a rocky outcrop, its buildings made of sturdy stone and metal, built to withstand the harsh winds and dust storms. The inhabitants were used to the grueling conditions, but one boy wearing a tattered uniform had no place in this world. His name was Caleb, and he had no memories of how he ended up on this planet. Only that it was a desolate place far from the world he once knew. He had made a life here, though it wasn't easy. In a society that didn't take kindly to outsiders, he had learned the art of surviving by any means necessary. Caleb crouched behind one of the stone walls of the marketplace, his eyes scanning the area for an opportunity. His stomach growled loudly, but he ignored it, his focus sharp. He spotted his target, a vendor selling rare alien fruits. The vendor's back was turned as he unloaded more goods from a hovering cart. Caleb quickly moved, his body low to the ground, making his way toward the unattended stall. His hand reached out for the sack of fruits, ready to make a swift getaway. But just as his fingers brushed against the bag, a sharp voice froze him in his tracks. "Stop right there, human." It was a woman's voice, powerful and commanding. Caleb turned to see an alien girl, her purple skin shimmering under the harsh sunlight. Her piercing eyes locked onto him with a mix of confusion and anger. Her white hair flowed like a waterfall down her back, and her armor, sleek and form-fitting, glinted as she moved. She was unlike anything Caleb had ever seen. Her presence seemed to demand attention. Without a word, she stepped toward him, her movements graceful but deliberate. Her hand reached out, not to strike, but to grab Caleb's wrist firmly. "I knew someone was stealing from my father's stall," she said, her voice calm but dangerous. "You're lucky I'm the one who caught you. If anyone else had seen you, your life would be over in an instant." Caleb didn't respond. His eyes dropped to the ground, ashamed. He had been caught, but he wasn't about to beg. He knew the risks, knew the punishment for stealing on this harsh planet. The alien girl, however, seemed to study him for a moment, as if considering something. Then, unexpectedly, she let go of his wrist and stepped back. "You're not from here, are you?" she asked, her tone softer now. "You're just a wanderer, a lost soul trying to survive." Caleb nodded, his gaze still focused on the ground. "I'm just trying to make it," he muttered. "I didn't mean any harm." The alien girl looked at him for a long moment, then sighed. "I can't let you steal, but I won't turn you in. Come with me," she said, motioning toward the nearby building. "I'll help you, but you'll owe me one." Caleb followed her reluctantly, not sure what to expect. As they walked, he couldn't help but feel a strange pull toward her. There was something about her, something he couldn't quite place. Her presence seemed to make the world around him feel smaller, safer, as if he didn't have to fight for survival every day. He had never felt that before. Little did Caleb know that moment caught stealing would change the course of his life forever. And the alien girl, whose name he still didn't know, would be the one to show him a new path. Days turned into weeks, and Caleb found himself spending more time with the alien girl, whose name he learned was Nira. She was a warrior, skilled in the art of combat, and despite her young appearance, she commanded respect among her people. Caleb never asked about her past, nor did she offer much information. They spent their time together in silence, mostly working on small tasks in the market, learning from one another. But one thing became clear: Nira had a soft spot for him, something Caleb couldn't fully understand. Nira was different from the others in this alien world. While most saw him as an outsider, a mere human with no place in their society, she treated him with a strange form of respect. It wasn't just kindness, but something deeper, something that made Caleb feel like he belonged, even if just for a moment. He wondered if it was because he was the one she had caught stealing, or if there was something more. One evening, As they sat outside under the twin moons, the wind howling through the desert, Nira broke the silence. "You've been here long enough now. I should have asked you this earlier, but I didn't," she began, her voice carrying a hint of uncertainty. "What is it that you want? What are you searching for?" Caleb looked at her, unsure of how to respond. He had never really thought about it before. Survival had always been his main concern, day after day, fight after fight. But now with Nira, something inside him stirred. There was a possibility of more. A chance to find something worth fighting for. "I don't know," he said quietly. "I guess I was just looking for a place to survive. But now I think I'm looking for something else." Nira nodded slowly, as if she understood. "We're all looking for something," she said, turning her gaze to the horizon, "but some of us never find it." As the days passed, Caleb's bond with Nira grew stronger. They spent more time together, and slowly, Caleb began to open up to her. He shared his past, his losses, and the reasons he ended up on this alien planet. In turn, Nira revealed bits of her own story, though it was clear she didn't want to delve too deeply into her past. She had her secrets, just as he did. But it didn't matter to Caleb. He felt an undeniable connection to her, something he had never felt with anyone before. One night, as they walked along the outskirts of the settlement, a group of armed men appeared from the shadows. Caleb tensed, his instincts telling him to fight, but Nira's hand on his arm stopped him. "Wait," she whispered, her voice low. The men approached them slowly, their eyes scanning the area. One of them spoke, his voice gruff. "You're with the human?" Nira's response was cold and firm. "I am. What do you want?" The man stepped closer, a cruel smile on his face. "We've been looking for him, the human thief. We know he's been stealing. He doesn't belong here." Caleb's heart raced. He had been caught again, this time by strangers. But Nira's presence made him feel calm, like she could protect him from anything. She stepped forward, her eyes burning with intensity. "He belongs here as much as any of you. If you have a problem with that, you'll have to go through me." For a moment, the men stood there, unsure of how to respond. But Nira's confidence was unshakable, and the men backed off, muttering under their breath. Caleb let out a breath. He hadn't realized he was holding. "Thanks," he said quietly. Nira turned to him, a small smile playing at the corner of her lips. "You're lucky I'm here," she said, her tone softening. "But you still have a lot to prove." Caleb didn't know it then, but that moment would mark a turning point in his life. The bond between him and Nira was no longer just about survival. It was about something deeper. Something that, for the first time, made Caleb wonder if maybe he wasn't so alone in this world after all. The days turned into months, and Caleb found himself falling deeper into a life he never imagined. He had spent his entire life running, hiding and surviving, but with Nira, he felt like he was living for something more. She taught him about the ways of the alien world, about its culture, its people, and its rules. But it wasn't just survival that kept him there anymore. It was her. Nira's strength and grace, her quiet confidence, and her deep understanding of the world around her. Caleb couldn't help but admire her. They often spent evenings together, sitting outside under the twin moons, talking about everything and nothing at all. Caleb learned that Nira's life hadn't been easy, either. She had lost family, had fought countless battles, and had learned to trust very few people. She never spoke much about her past, but Caleb knew that it was something that weighed heavily on her. And yet, she had taken him in, a stranger, an outsider, without question. He couldn't understand it, but he was grateful. One evening, as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the marketplace, Caleb noticed a change in Nira. She was quieter than usual, her movements slower, almost cautious. It was as if something was on her mind, something she wasn't telling him. He could feel the tension in the air, but he didn't know how to address it. He waited, hoping she would speak first. Finally, after a long silence, Nira turned to him, her eyes searching his face. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice hesitant. "Something important." Caleb looked at her, his heart racing. He nodded, unsure of what to expect. "What is it?" Nira took a deep breath, her gaze steady. "I know what you are, what you've been doing, the stealing, the lying. But I also know why. I see you. You're not just a thief. You're more than that. And I can't help but feel like I've been a part of your story now. I've seen you change. I've seen you grow. But I also need to be honest with you. I've been fighting a war my whole life, and it's about to get a lot harder." Caleb felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice low. "I can't stay here forever." Nira said, her eyes avoiding his. "There are enemies. They've been watching me, watching you. And I've been too close to you. It's only a matter of time before they come for both of us." Caleb's mind raced. He had never considered this. The dangers of living in an alien world had always been real, but he hadn't thought that they would come for him, for Nira. She was more than just a warrior. She was someone with power, with influence. And now, it seemed like it was all about to come crashing down around them. "What do we do?" Caleb asked, his voice steady but unsure. Nyra met his gaze, her eyes soft but determined. "We fight, we prepare for the worst, and we survive. But we don't do it alone." For the first time, Caleb understood the true weight of the situation. He wasn't just fighting for his survival anymore. He was fighting for hers too. And it scared him. But it also gave him a sense of purpose, something he had never had before. He wasn't just a boy caught stealing anymore. He was a part of something bigger, something worth fighting for. As the days passed, they began preparing for the battle that was coming. They trained together, each learning from the other. Nira showed Caleb how to use alien weapons, how to move silently through the night, how to blend into the shadows. And Caleb taught her about human resilience, about the strength that came from desperation. It was a partnership born out of necessity, but it was also something more. They were becoming something more than just allies. They were becoming something deeper. One evening, as they stood together on the edge of the settlement, looking out at the horizon, Caleb turned to Nira, his heart pounding. "If we survive this, what happens then?" Nira didn't answer immediately. She just looked at him, her eyes filled with a strange mixture of hope and sadness. Finally she spoke, her voice soft. "I don't know. But I do know one thing. You and I, we're in this together. And that's enough for me." Caleb didn't say anything in response. Instead, he took her hand, his grip firm. For the first time, he felt like he wasn't alone. They had each other, and that was all that mattered now. The war came faster than they had expected. It was no longer a matter of waiting for the inevitable. Nira's enemies arrived, an army of well-trained soldiers prepared to wipe out anyone standing in their way. The sounds of distant explosions filled the air, echoing across the rocky terrain as Caleb and Nira prepared for the battle that would decide everything. The marketplace, once a place of simple commerce, had now become a battleground. Alien warriors in shining armor clashed with the defenders of the settlement, their weapons flashing in the sunlight. Caleb and Nira fought side by side, moving as one, each protecting the other. Caleb had never felt more alive, his heart pounding as he swung his weapon, knocking enemies to the ground. He was no longer just surviving. He was fighting for something worth protecting. Nira moved with incredible speed and precision, her blade cutting through the air with deadly grace. She was a force to be reckoned with, her strength unmatched by any of the soldiers around her. Caleb watched in awe as she fought, her movements fluid and powerful. He had never seen anything like it. She wasn't just a warrior. She was a symbol of hope, of strength, and he would follow her anywhere. "Stay close," Nira shouted over the chaos, her voice cutting through the noise. Caleb nodded, his focus sharp as he pushed forward, protecting her with every step. The battle raged on, but they were a team. They fought together, their bond growing stronger with every passing moment. As the hours passed, the tide began to shift in their favor. The enemy forces were weakening, retreating as Nira's warriors pushed them back. But just when it seemed like victory was within their grasp, a new threat appeared. A massive warship descended from the sky, its engines roaring as it hovered over the battlefield. It was unlike anything Caleb had ever seen, a dark, imposing ship bristling with weapons. Nira's face darkened as she watched the ship land. "This is it," she said quietly, her eyes narrowing. "The real battle begins now." Caleb felt a chill run down his spine. They had come so far, but now it seemed like everything was on the line. The warship's doors opened, and a group of heavily armored soldiers stepped out, their weapons aimed at the fighters below. Their leader, a tall figure in black armor, stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Nira. "I've come for you, princess," the leader said, his voice cold and commanding. "It's time for you to pay for your betrayal." Nira's jaw tightened as she faced him, her eyes filled with defiance. "I won't run. I've already made my choice," she said, her voice unwavering. "And I'm not afraid of you," the leader smirked. "We'll see about that," he said, signaling for his soldiers to advance. Caleb's heart pounded in his chest. This was it. The battle they had prepared for was about to reach its peak. He could see the fear in Nira's eyes, but it wasn't fear of losing. It was the fear of losing him. She had already given so much for him, and now it seemed like they were at the brink of everything falling apart. But Caleb wouldn't let that happen. He had made a promise to her, one he couldn't break. He wouldn't leave her side, not now, not ever. With a deep breath, he tightened his grip on his weapon and stepped forward, ready to fight for the girl who had changed his life. The leader's soldiers charged, but Caleb and Nira were ready. They fought back with everything they had, their strength and determination pushing them forward. Caleb could feel the power of their bond as they fought side by side, the weight of the world on their shoulders. But it didn't matter. Together they were unstoppable. As the battle raged on, Caleb felt the shift in the air, the energy building. It was as if the universe itself was watching them, waiting for the outcome. He had never felt this alive, this connected to someone else. Nira wasn't just a warrior. She was his strength, his reason for fighting. And with her by his side, Caleb knew they could face anything that came their way. The final moments of the battle were a blur. Caleb fought with everything he had, his body bruised and battered from hours of combat. His mind was focused on one thing, and one thing only, Nira. He couldn't let anything happen to her. As the enemy forces continued to push forward, Caleb knew they were reaching the tipping point. It was either they won, or everything they had fought for would be lost. The warship loomed above them, its massive form casting an ominous shadow over the battlefield. Nira stood beside him, her expression unwavering. Despite the chaos, she was calm, her movements precise and controlled. But Caleb could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the toll this fight had taken on her. She had already given so much, yet she never wavered. It was a strength that Caleb couldn't help but admire. She wasn't just a warrior. She was a leader, and she had led them all to this moment. "We have to end this now," Nira said, her voice steady but fierce. "The warship is the key. If we destroy it, we end this battle once and for all." Caleb nodded, understanding her plan. They had come this far together. It was time to finish it. With a final surge of energy, they made their way toward the warship, fighting their way through the remaining soldiers. Caleb could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins, the weight of the world on his shoulders. But he wasn't afraid. He had Nira by his side, and that was all that mattered. When they reached the base of the warship, Nira motioned for Caleb to follow her. They entered through a narrow opening, their weapons drawn and ready. The interior of the ship was dark, the walls lined with advanced technology and alien machinery. The sound of footsteps echoed through the corridors as they moved swiftly, searching for the control room. It was there that they would face their final challenge. The leader of the enemy forces awaited them in the control room, his dark armor gleaming in the low light. He stood by a large console, his hand hovering over the activation switch. Nira stepped forward, her eyes locked on him with unwavering determination. "This ends now," she said, her voice echoing in the quiet room. Leader turned to face her, a cruel smile on his face. "You've come to stop me, Princess. You're too late." Caleb felt a surge of anger. "We're not too late," he said, his voice filled with conviction. "We've already won." The leader laughed, but it was a hollow sound. "You think you can defeat me? You think you can stop this war?" "We don't need to defeat you," Nira said, stepping forward. "We only need to stop this ship." With a swift motion, Nira lunged at the leader, her blades slicing through the air. He blocked her attack with ease, their weapons clashing with a loud metallic sound. But Caleb could see the determination in Nira's eyes. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for everything they had built, for the future they had fought for. Caleb took a step forward, his weapon raised. The leader turned his attention to him, but it was too late. Nira had already disarmed him, her blade now aimed at his chest. "It's over," she said, her voice calm and resolute. The leader dropped to his knees, his expression filled with rage and defeat. "You think you've won? You think this is the end?" Nira's gaze softened for a moment. "It is the end for you." With a final strike, Nira ended the battle. The warship's systems powered down, and the remaining enemy forces surrendered. The fight was over. The war was won. As Caleb stood by Nira's side, looking out at the peaceful horizon, he realized that everything had changed. He had come to this planet as a thief, a stranger with no purpose, but now he had found something worth fighting for. He had found a home, and more importantly, he had found Nira. She wasn't just his ally or his protector. She had become his reason for living. Together, they had faced the darkness, and together, they had emerged victorious. The war was over, but their journey was just beginning. And for the first time in his life, Caleb felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be.